Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Animation Pilgrimage. I am Tennille.
And I'm Sean.
And this week on Animation Pilgrimage, we are covering Walt Disney Studios' 1953 classic, Peter Pan.
Peter Pan! Old Pete.
Yeah.
Old Petey boy.
Yep. I think this is one of the... Of the older Disney films that, like, the original 9 Old Men worked on.
Uh-huh.
I think this one is remembered fondly and not watched often.
I would have to agree.
Because it just hasn't aged well.
No.
And yet
it certainly hasn't.
It's still so prevalent in our culture today.
Yeah.
Peter Pan in general is.
Here we go! Off to Neverland!
Well, I mean...
It's been done so many times.
Yeah, I mean, Peter Pan is something that gets...
Remade
in
a new movie,
years.
yeah, every few years, and most all of them are garbage.
Well, I mean, okay. We say every few years, but only since, like, Hook came out?
Yeah, I think off of the success of Robin Williams playing an adult Peter Pan in the movie Hook from the 1980s.
Well, and it's not just that. It's the fact that it's like, okay, well, we don't have to animate Peter Pan anymore. Because, like, when Disney did it, the only way to adapt Peter Pan was to animate it.
Because
you've got the crocodile, you've got kids flying all over the place.
It's like, and you can use your imagination on a
You've got Native
play.
Americans, and there's no way back then they'd put actual Native Americans in a movie. Oh, snap. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway. But
this movie has kind of aged.
The source material has aged.
Yeah.
The source material doesn't even mean the same thing that it used to mean. And has taken on a whole new meaning.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so I saw this thread on Twitter, so maybe I'm completely wrong here, but from how they were explaining it, it makes sense to me, and then thinking back on that weird, 2004 movie, Finding Neverland, it all seemed to make more sense.
My parents took us to... me and my siblings to go see that, thinking it was a kids movie. It wasn't...
It was, but it's really boring.
Yeah, it's just one of those boring adult PG movies where nothing happens for kids.
Yeah. Well, anyway. But
we're not talking about that one. We're talking about Peter Pan.
We're talking about Peter Pan. But, like, the original... Can't remember the author's name. Barry something. Or something Barry.
Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, see, that's the only name I could think of, and I know it's not that.
No,
but I know
this came along a little earlier than her.
I know. His name is something Barry.
Whatever. I'm sure you flashed it on screen multiple times at this point.
Anyway, the original story... or not so story, but the character of Peter Pan is more so about, like, children who have died. Because when James Barry.
Okay.
I think that's his name.
I believe you.
Okay. Anyway.
There's nothing that will dissuade me from thinking this is correct.
Okay. So, Peter's a dead child. Because in the late 1800s, children died to illness a lot.
Yeah, I could see that. Medicine kind of was crap back then.
Right. Well, and, people couldn't necessarily get to doctors or had, like, well-trained doctors,
death was a big thing, so that's why everyone had 5,000 children.
Right. So, and that's why, like, Peter never grows up and, like, doesn't leave Neverland. He can't. He is a child who will never grow up because he's dead.
So he gets to go play in a magical playground that's built perfectly for a boy.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, Neverland is... like if you're a parent who has lost a child, it's like, oh, well, it's so nice to think of my child going to Neverland, opposed to them just being dead.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, obviously with like Hook, the Hook movie being a thing, us as a culture don't really think of Peter Pan in that light anymore.
No.
We think of it more of a loss of childhood innocence.
Yeah. It's like
to the trials and tribulations of adult life.
Yeah, it's definitely a different meaning now. It's like, no, this is all about being a child forever, childhood whimsy, never growing up, la 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 la, skirting away from my responsibilities, not, my child is dead, so I'm going to think about them being in a happy place where they can be a child and be free.
Right, and I'm not saying the original book isn't also kind of about the losing sight of that childhood whimsy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it kind of is. I haven't read Peter Pan.
Same.
I just know a lot of Peter Pan related things. Because, you know, Peter Pan's pretty ingrained in our culture. But I think the Disney one more so kind of started to shift that focus into losing childhood whimsy. Because, of course, that's Disney's brand. Like, that's their bread and butter. Not losing sight of childhood whimsy.
So of course they have to do Peter Pan.
Bringing out the child in all adults and all that. So there's that whole tangent.
Yeah, okay. I guess for anyone who is not aware of what happens in this movie, maybe we should go over that.
For anyone who's somehow never seen any adaptation ever of Peter Pan.
So, Wendy, John, and Michael are 3 kids living in Britain with their family, or with their parents, and then one night, Peter Pan comes along, because he lost his shadow.
Whoa. You're missing, like, the most important plot point of the movie.
Okay. Wendy has to grow up and
grow up and leave the nursery.
Leave the nursery. So this is her last night. Mm-hmm. And then Peter Pan comes along, and he's lost his shadow, which is a thing, I guess.
I'm sure there's a metaphor for it.
Yeah, well, either way, the dog, Nana, who is the nursemaid, had it, and Wendy took it away, and now she's sewing it back to Peter's foot.
All right, speed along here. We don't need, like, a breakdown of Peter Pan. Most people know what this is.
It's true. Either way, he gives them all fairy dust from his little friend Tinkerbell, and they fly off to Neverland, and also Tinkerbell is a jealous bitch.
Anyway, the kids go to Neverland. There's a pirate named Captain Hook. He wants Peter dead because Peter chopped off his hand, fed it to a crocodile.
And the crocodile wants to eat Hook for all of time.
Shenanigans ensue on Neverland, and Wendy decides that they're having a bad time, and...
Specifically her. She's having a bad time with everything.
Right.
Being drowned by mermaids, being attacked by children.
Being forgotten and left behind by Peter.
Multiple times. Being treated as just a female who has to work while all the boys get to have fun. A squaw in the Indian camp.
Anyway, she misses home.
She's like, you know what? No, I want to grow up. Let's go back home. And so she's like, mothers are great. We should all go home and live with my mother.
Yeah.
And so they're like, that sounds good. And then Captain Hook captures them through the help of Tinkerbell being tricked.
Yes.
And then Peter Pan comes along and saves everybody.
Yep, saves them all. Captain Hook is defeated. Question mark?
Yeah.
And then they fly away back home to London, where only Wendy, Michael, and John
actually go.
The Lost Boys retcon their idea of going home, and they're like, nah, actually, we don't need a mother.
That's because
we're not ready to grow up.
They're children that you give them one suggestion, and they're gung-ho 100% behind that until the next suggestion comes along. Yeah. And it's not just them. John and Michael are the exact same way.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, I kind of wonder why Disney didn't... Because, I mean, Disney always kind of plays fast and loose with these adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I say that, and yet, so far the adaptations we've seen them do have been fairly faithful.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if they played a little faster and looser with this, they would have cut John and Michael.
Yeah,
And
they don't
either
really
just
need to
made
exist.
made it one character, or just cut them completely.
Yeah, they don't do anything.
Nah.
They do nothing.
Nah, they had nothing to the story.
If nothing else, there could have been, like, one brother.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't think Walt was too much involved with this project, but Walt is the one who's usually more, like, he was more hands-on with, like, taking a story apart and putting it back together so it fit better for a theatrical
Yes.
audience.
As compared to either a book or a play or whatever it is that they're tearing apart.
Right. And I think even by this point, Peter Pan would have been a pretty well-known property.
Yeah.
Like, definitely a book that probably a lot of parents read to their kids at night or something like that.
I mean, it was
So I would
originally
guess-
a stage play.
Yeah. And so I guess, like, probably the Disney team was like, okay, we've got to be fairly faithful to this. I know they still aren't truly faithful to it.
Yeah.
Because there's, like, the whole kiss thing that, like, never goes anywhere. They bring it up in the movie.
Oh, yeah, they bring it up twice, sort of, or once.
They bring it up at the beginning.
Yeah,
And then it's
dropped.
never brought up again.
It's like the kiss that Wendy wants to give to Peter Pan at the very beginning is the reason that Tinkerbell is so angry
Yeah.
and is relentless at trying to get Wendy killed
Yeah.
for the rest of the movie. And then she gets exiled and doesn't exist for half the movie.
Yeah. I remember seeing like a behind the scenes with the 9 Old Men on this one, or it was like one that was done way later on. And I think it was either Frank or Ollie talking about working on Tinkerbell. And they were just saying like, she's so volatile. She's like, she can only feel one emotion at a time. Like, because she's so small, she can only feel one emotion at a time is how they said it. And so she feels it very, very strongly.
That's enjoyable.
And that was like their thought process for how to handle her.
For just like a very simplistic character.
Yeah.
It works. I mean, she's a very enjoyable character in this movie.
Oh, I mean, there's a reason she is
Still around.
iconic.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
She's the one character that shows up in nearly every Disney film. Mm-hmm. Or at least she did for a while.
Yeah.
As like the opening arc.
Well, but I mean, she's so tiny. Like, it's implied it's Tinkerbell, but you don't really see her. Anyway, I feel like we're going off on a lot of tangents.
This movie does.
Yeah, it's Pan.
They take place in childlike, boyish whimsy of things happening.
Okay, but we gotta actually, I feel like we're just talking about Peter Pan as a whole. We need to talk about this movie.
We need to break down on this film.
Yeah. How do you feel about this film?
I think, as a whole, this film is a good movie. I feel, in pieces, there are some big flaws with this movie.
Uh-huh.
I feel that specific parts of this movie could have been changed to be less offensive, and also make certain characters less of giant assholes for the entire runtime.
Huh. Who would that be?
Peter Pan!
Oh my gosh.
That was a little loud.
Yeah. Peter's an asshole. I mean, he's supposed to be.
Yeah, he's supposed to be
like an 8-year-old boy.
a naive boy who's in the body of like a 13 to 15-year-old kid.
Okay, yeah. All right. Let's get this out of the way. I love Milt Kahl, God rest his soul.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Peter and Wendy look too old in this movie.
They
feel
look like they're already well into their teens.
Well, they look like they're at least 12. And I feel like with the way they act, they should be younger. Mm-hmm. Like 10 oldest.
Yeah.
Oldest. I think 8 would have been a nice age.
But no, they're very old looking, which makes Peter Pan's asshole-ish, naive, boyish nature all of the worse.
Unbearable.
Because now it just looks like this young teenage kid running around just being a total jerk. Like a selfish
and totally
jerk.
Oblivious to anybody else's feelings.
All the time.
Right.
And it's like, I remember watching this film as a child long time ago, and I don't really remember much about it. I was like, yeah, it's fine, it's cool, and whatever, Peter Pan. And then it was like 3 years ago, we sat down and watched this film again, and I'm just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Peter Pan is an asshole.
Yeah.
Just like, I hate him. Just, I do not like this character.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, it's amazing, because, yeah, like, my feelings on this film have had a character arc. They've had a character arc all on their own. As a kid, I loved this movie. I always remember really liking the beginning of the movie more than the rest of it. Probably because there was a dog on screen. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, and I really liked dogs as a kid. And I still like dogs, but yeah, I really liked this movie. I liked Peter. I thought it was fun. Yada yada yada. And then when I got older, I didn't hate this movie, but I hated Peter Pan.
Yeah, it's like there are really great elements of this movie, which we really haven't talked about a whole lot. But anything,
we'll get there.
Yeah, anything involving Captain Hook is gold.
Well, yeah,
but we'll talk about that later.
Give me just a second.
We need to continue about Pete.
Yeah. And then, like, now, just recently, we've watched this, and now I can watch it.
And you've mellowed out a bit on him?
Right, and I'm like, you know what? I don't hate him too much.
As much as I did.
Right. He is still a child. I think if they would have made his character design look a little bit younger,
it would help.
It would have felt better. And done a couple of things that didn't make... I mean, the point is that he's an asshole, right? Like, the story
He's supposed to be.
Yeah, like, the story wouldn't pan out the same way.
Oh.
If he was a swell guy, like, the
100% of the time?
Yeah, like, the kids would have just stayed in Neverland, and that would have completely missed the point.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I was in that middle stage, I was like, Pan sucks, and I actually kind of wish Captain Hook would just kill him. But now I've, like, mellowed out, and I'm like, okay, these two are both problematic.
And don't get us wrong, we do realize that he, in the movie, has a tiny character arc where at the end he's like, I care about you, not Wendy.
Yeah, Wendy.
No, Tinkerbell. It's like, you're the only reason I care about things. You can't die on me. Because that comes out of nowhere and is like, okay, now he's a good guy. We realize this exists, and I don't think it excuses his behavior.
There's always this really weird... I would have to dig into this. I always feel like there's supposed to be... Maybe this is subtext that I'm reading way too hard into, and it's all these, like, other remakes of Peter Pan that seem to push this narrative. But does it seem to you like there's supposed to be some kind of relationship between Tinkerbell and Peter Pan? Like, she likes him too much.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely insinuated in this version, at least.
But she also... acts like his mom.
Oh.
I don't think that's apparent in this one, like in this version of the film. But I feel like that became a thing at some point.
Oh.
In the Peter Pan movies, where Tinkerbell is both
love interest,
romantically interested in Peter Pan, and
but also a mother
his
figure.
mom,
Oh,
which is just
Oh, no. oh no, that. Why would you? This is already an issue. Don't bring this up to young boys, please. I know this to be a big issue. Stop. I didn't think about that, and I don't want to think. Oh.
Well, I don't think it's present in this film.
No. If anything, she's a love interest.
Yeah, it's definitely more of like a love triangle thing where it's like unreciprocated feelings from Peter to Tinkerbell.
Mm-hmm.
And also unreciprocated feelings from Peter Pan to Wendy because Peter Pan is a boy and he doesn't understand love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But girls mature faster, so Wendy's like, I like you. No, I like you.
Mm-hmm. I want to give you a kiss.
You don't understand. And he's like, nope.
A thimble.
I don't understand at all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
It's fine. It's fine.
Everything is not fine. Let's
I'm sorry. So, let's talk about some more problematic things.
Yeah, let's just keep diving into the other big problem of this film.
Okay, but wait. Let's tackle this another smaller one.
Okay.
Treatment of women.
I wouldn't call that smaller, but okay.
I mean, it's not as, like, in your face.
Okay, that's true.
That's what I mean by smaller. It's not that it isn't still a big problem. It's just that it's on a smaller scale because it's not as prevalent in the movie as the other big problem.
Yeah. This movie is a fantasy for boys.
Boys only.
Boys only. Girls are not allowed in our club. Girls drool.
I mean, even the beginning of the movie with Darling.
The Darling family?
Yeah.
Where like
Mrs.
John and Michael are allowed to run around and have fun and they're being pirates and stuff. But Wendy is still off doing like adulty things and like
little chores and
they always excuse the boys for just being boys, but Wendy has to be the responsible adult female character.
Uh-huh.
But the boys are allowed to just be little shits.
I mean, you can excuse that by saying that they're younger than she is because she's the eldest.
Yeah.
But also...
But this is just a theme that carries out throughout the entire film.
Yeah.
And that's where the big problem comes.
I mean, even with, like, okay, George is like, bah, 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 throwing a fit, just like the rest of the boys. He's so angry that he's lost his shit. And he throws a big temper tantrum. And so the wife comes in, and oh, she's just so pleasant and calm and just the perfect wife.
To deal with her rude, awful husband.
Right.
No, this is where you smack his face and say, stop.
Calm down.
Get over it. It's not a big deal.
Right.
And she, like, tries to calm him and stuff, but, like, no, she needs to be stern with him. Like,
it's always just like, oh, dear, don't worry about it. Or, like, and then to flip it around, too, like, the women are always,
mocked.
Ignoring the dad's frustrations. Like, he's kind of a bumbling idiot dad that they don't... Which is another trope I hate seeing.
Yeah. It's like, no, guys can do things past that too.
Right. It's like, I expect more out of both of these parents.
Come on.
This is an awful relationship. And yet again, it's the 1800s. I understand. Also, it's okay. It's an 1800s relationship portrayed in the 1950s. Of course it has all these problems. That still does not make them problems.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, like, right off the bat, the first thing we introduce Tinkerbell with is her measuring her waist.
And just be like, oh God, I'm so fat.
Right.
And it's like, girl, you look fine.
It's like, Oh.
It's like, that's a great way to introduce our second female or technically third female character of the movie.
Fourth, if you count Nana.
Okay. One of the most important female characters, that's a good way to introduce her.
Yeah.
And then her just being jealous of Wendy for the rest of the movie.
Right.
That's all she does.
Yeah. She's a woman scorned.
Uh-huh.
A wonderful trope. But, I mean, and it's a lovely bit of character animation. Probably,
yeah.
Gosh, I want to say it was Frank Thomas who animated her. It's like probably one of his best, just like character moments. It's like, it's really good animation. And yet, you look at it today and you're like, oh, man, really?
Her animation is fantastically done, but it's like, did we need to... The subject matter is the part that's the issue.
Yeah. Oh, and then the fact that Captain Hook totally uses the women scorned thing against Tinkerbell. Like, of course, he's the villain. But
he's like, oh, Peter Pan, just toying with your heart. We can forgive him. It's Wendy's fault.
It's Wendy's fault. Yeah.
And it's like, no, it's definitely Peter's fault. For
being an asshole.
Being an asshole and not paying attention to your feelings. It's Peter's fault, not Wendy's.
Wendy has nothing to do with this. She just wants to go home.
She's realized he's an issue and she does not want to deal with him anymore. And she didn't know that you had this thing going on.
Yeah.
Bad communication.
Yeah. And then everybody just treats Wendy so poorly.
All the time.
All the time.
Forever.
Yeah. Wendy does not have a good time at all.
Okay. I mean, we need to do it. We need to address the...
Why is the red man red?
Yeah. We need to address the red elephant in the room. The Native Americans in this movie are not portrayed kindly.
I don't remember them being that bad as a kid.
Well, no, because you're a kid and you don't realize.
And in the past, I've always kind of defended this whole part of the movie. Because the way I used to think about it was, it's a boyish fantasy. When little boys think about this kind of stuff, they're thinking like cowboys and Indians, pirates, like...
Things are obviously going to be exaggerated to the extreme in their
Right,
fantasies.
and it's a cartoon, so yeah,
it's
distasteful, but understandable.
But at the same time, this is a large company that is broadcasting this image to thousands upon millions of young minds who are going to imprint this in their minds as being okay.
Right, and now it's like this movie's such a classic that's like, okay, this didn't just grow up with 50s kids generation. This has grown up with generation upon generation of children.
It's like most kids that have access to more than like the newest Disney movies are going to have seen this one.
Oh yeah.
It's like, I can imagine that I know most kids my age would have probably seen this movie at some point.
Oh yeah. Well, and another big thing too is that, like, okay, take the Pirates, for example. The Pirates, just, let's look at it art-wise. Art-wise. The Pirates all have hugely varied character design.
Yes.
The Indians, on the other hand, are all
the exact
extremely similar. They're not the exact same. Not exactly. But they are all very, very similar.
They all have the same nose. They all have the same jaw. They all have the same
Small
hair.
forehead.
Tiny forehead with same haircut.
And if you know anything about character design, that kind of character design implies stupidity. It implies, like, dull of wit, lazy, because they're all, like, slouched. It's like these things say something. Now, there is a nice, clever quote-unquote clever joke when they first introduced the Indians, where John is talking to the boys and he's saying, like, oh, well, you know, all we have to do is surround the Indian, and then and then we will take him out because they're not very smart. And while he's explaining all this, the Indians have surrounded them.
And we're doing exactly what they were saying.
Yeah, did exactly what John said and took them out because they're not very smart because they're boys.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously the chief has a different design and Tiger Lily has a different design. And I love Tiger Lily, but Tiger Lily also presents a problem.
Because she's not like everyone else.
She's very attractive.
She is an attractive little girl who is designed to look like every other little girl, except slightly reddish brown.
Mm-hmm. And she has like a dance, and she flirts with Peter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really it. And it's like,
this is an issue.
Oh, what an issue. And I'm sorry if you don't see the issue. I hope someday you get it. If we aren't able to explain it well enough, I apologize.
We're trying, but it's difficult to put into words.
Yeah. And like I said, I used to defend this part of the movie. Because I even like the song.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's a catchy song. But not one I would sing out in public.
No, definitely not.
Nah.
I can't say I'm a big fan of it anymore. Okay. All right.
Can we talk about things we like about this movie?
Yes.
Because we actually had a really good time watching this.
Okay, it sounds like we've had a big issue with a lot of this film. We're ragging on like a lot of specific things that are big parts of the movie. Mm-hmm. But we did really enjoy this film and had lots of fun with it. Specifically with Captain Hook.
This movie is hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, especially if you can look at the outdated stuff and just laugh about it, it's even more funny.
Oh, yeah, that definitely helps.
Because I think all of that was intended to be a joke, but it's just aged so poorly that people kind of look at it now and go,
Ew.
oh, I don't even want to laugh at this. Okay.
Yeah. Of course. But all of the comedy with Captain Hook, all of his mannerisms, all of his like interactions with Mr. Smee and like Peter Pan and anyone.
Oh yeah,
he can interact with any other character and it's great stuff.
Yeah, whenever Hook, Smee, Peter are all on screen together, you know you're in for like a good hearty belly laugh.
Oh yes.
It's so good. And the stuff like the timing
especially
with
when
the
crocodile gets involved
is so funny. The timing is so good.
I mean, there are things from this movie that make me laugh to this day if you show me it. Like, specifically, the very end of the movie when, like,
I know exactly what you're gonna say.
He gets shot out, I don't remember, I think it's out of the crocodile's mouth.
Yeah, like the crocodile has like
he's got his legs and he's like snaps down and he just goes skidding across the water and they like cut the audio until like he hits, so just it's so good. And like that's just how he exits the movie. It's amazing.
It's so funny. Well, and even his introduction where the buccaneer is
with the accordion
is singing a song about how a pirate's life is great but short. Mm-hmm. And then Captain Hook's just like, oh my god, and shoots him.
Because he's just like does not like his singing.
Yeah. And then Smee's like, killing someone in the middle of their
arpeggio or something?
Arpeggio, that's bad form, Captain.
It's so good.
It's so funny.
And then Captain Hook's just like, bad form! Oh, he's so good at like the small motions and then just exploding.
Exploding with energy. It's so good.
He is such a great part.
Yeah. Yeah, now, in the Disney studio, wars were fought over who would be lead animator on Captain Hook.
I can imagine it.
Yeah, and Frank and Ollie won that war, because Frank and Ollie worked both on Captain Hook and Smee. Mm-hmm. And I think they would kind of trade off, but Frank was mostly in charge of Captain Hook, and Ollie was in charge of Smee. And then Milt Kahl got stuck with, in his own words, Peter, Wendy, John, Michael, but mostly Peter, and he hated it. But that being said,
his animation is so good.
Just
exquisite.
Animation junkies, please rewatch this movie and just notice.
Just focus on Peter.
Focus on Peter and focus on how much of the movie he spends flying and doing like turnarounds and stuff and flipping around in the air.
That stuff is really hard to do.
And he does it throughout the entire film. It's said, I found this on Deja's blog. That Milt, they recorded reference with Bobby Driscoll, because Bobby Driscoll plays Peter Pan, and then they got Catherine Beaumont again back to play Wendy, and they did the same thing that they've done for all these last few movies, where they film the whole thing, shooting live action reference, and then give that to the animators. Well, Milt essentially, like, looked at the live action reference,
and he's just like, eh.
And then, threw it away and didn't use it. And you can tell, because obviously they wouldn't have been able to film what Peter is doing.
Nearly anything that Peter does.
Yeah, just like
every now and again you're like, okay, that looks realistic enough that I think a human was filmed doing that at one point.
Yeah, like maybe some of the fight choreography.
Or just like when he's sitting on the bed at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah, like, that could be it.
Very simple, small, calm things like that.
But yeah,
so Peter much just, like, moves and flits around so much. It's amazing. And
you can, for such a simple-minded character, you can see his thought process so clearly.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
you know what Peter is about all the time.
Yeah. And for that to come from such a simple-minded, childlike character, that's amazing.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's like, I hate Peter as a character. I love Peter as an animated character. Like an animated thing.
Yeah. As an art form.
Yeah. But yeah. Captain Hook, Mr. Smee, Peter Pan, Tinker Bell. I think the author had a naming scheme going on. 2-syllable first name, 1-syllable second.
Yeah.
Peter Pan, Tinker Bell, Mr. Smee,
Captain Hook.
But it works. It's catchy.
Yeah.
And you remember all of those names. John. Michael.
Not so much.
Nope.
Even Wendy is kind of hard to remember, TBH.
Wendy.
The Wendy bird.
There you go. Wendy Bird. Wendy Bird.
Your eyes just like lit up like, I found the missing link.
There it is. Got it. Woo.
Wendy Bird. I wonder if that rhythmic cadence is appealing to children or something.
It could be, and it also probably works very well in a musical.
Yes,
because it's a musical.
Fun fact, Sean and I were in this musical.
Yeah, I was one of the Lost Boys. I don't remember what my name was.
Scruffy, Tuffy, who cares?
I don't know. I just know that in the Disney film, the character I was representing was the Fox kid.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I was the best character. I was Nana.
You were the dog.
I auditioned for that role.
Fun fact.
Uh-huh.
I was in a different production of that movie when I was in 4th grade.
Oh, really?
Do you know who I was that time?
Michael? John?
I was John.
John?
Sean played John.
Aw, cute.
I mean, John does nothing, so...
Did you get a little
Top hat?
top hat?
I don't think so.
Because, I mean, most play productions, like, bring over stuff from the Disney movie.
Especially if it's a play that is like using the elementary school children.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, I mean, that's the whole cast.
Yeah.
It's a lot of just chanting music and like...
You can fly, you can fly, you can fly.
Repeated.
Yeah.
Forever.
Forever and ever. There's some impressive camera shots in this movie.
Yeah.
That you don't think about nowadays because they're tame compared to like what we can do now in animation.
But just thinking about
obviously.
how difficult it was still back at this point. But like
I know I've got some
at the end, Captain Hook slowly climbing the rigging, but like it's face down, like you're looking down at him as he climbs towards you. Mm-hmm. That is impressive.
That shot is beautiful. And I think that one was actually not animated by Frank Thomas. I remember reading this on Andreas Deja's blog as well. That was animated by John Lazenberry, I think.
And also, like you're going to say John Lassenberg.
No.
Lasseter.
Lasseter. Obviously not. No. Lassenberry. Yeah, I think that was animated by him. I feel pretty sure. It feels like his work.
Okay. But that shot is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that... Ugh. It's so good. But also the whole flying sequence through London.
Oh,
it's like,
yeah.
As a kid, I always kind of felt like that scene went on too long.
It does.
I mean, it still kind of does. But there's a reason now, and I understand it. It's because they're showing off.
They're showing off all this cool stuff they can do.
Yeah, and especially now since we've seen, the movies...
Building up to this.
Building up to this point, it's like, wow, that is a fine looking shot right there.
Oh yeah, and just
that is a one singular shot. They have not made a single cut yet.
They have not cut. It's been over 30 seconds with panning shot the whole time.
Yeah.
They're still going. This is insane for the time period.
Yeah.
But just to put this in perspective, recently, like the recent films we've been watching are all like Russian films with heavy rotoscope. Mm-hmm. And all of those are good, interesting, beautiful films to watch.
Oh, yeah.
But this movie just looks so much better than all of those.
I mean, they also have Disney has Technicolor.
Oh, yeah.
And...
They have Technicolor and they have, obviously, a bigger budget, I would assume.
Yeah.
But... like, you can just still see all of the raw talent that they have at Disney at the time.
Well, and now at this point, experience.
Oh, yeah, and they definitely have experience. Yeah, that's a good way. Not just talent.
Yeah, raw talent is
Give
short.
or take.
Well, like, that's shortcutting all the work that went into getting to this point.
Yes.
Like... the Nine Old Men and stuff, Disney at this point is now nearly 30 years.
From, like, the beginnings of, like...
the 20s.
Mm-hmm. Starting
now?
with, like, the black and white cartoons that they started with.
Right, so, like, Peter Pan, this took 30 years to get to.
And it shows.
Yeah, like...
it's a gorgeous film.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous film, and their use of the live action as a tool is becoming better and better with each film. I know last time we were on a Disney film, it was with Alice in Wonderland, and I said that I felt like I couldn't understand Alice as a character because so many people were animating her, and like she just didn't feel coherent throughout the whole film for me. I don't feel that problem with
This
Wendy.
No.
Or with any of the characters. And I think because it's split up between so many characters, that allows for the animators to kind of focus on the characters a bit more.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the source material too. I don't know. But this movie just flows better for me.
I would agree. And, I mean, we just enjoyed it more.
Yeah.
That probably helps.
Yeah, obviously. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this movie for a long time, but there's a lot to talk about with it. So...
It's one of those, if you haven't seen it in a long time, go ahead and rewatch it. You might be surprised at how, especially if the last time you watched it was a child, you will probably feel very different about this movie watching it now.
It's like, you'll get some of those nostalgic beats, but it might be long enough ago that you lost some of those, and now other things are happening.
Yeah.
Okay, so coming up next, we have another Czechoslovakian film. It is Old Czech Legends. And if I remember correctly, I think this one's stop motion.
Oh. Well, I mean, the last one we saw from Czechoslovakia was stop motion.
Oh, yeah, because they had the...
Emperor's Nightingale,
so that would make sense.
Yeah.
I would guess it's probably the same people, but who knows? We will find out that...
next time.
Yeah, next time. I can't speak.
Anyway, goodbye, everybody. Until next time.
Bye.
So try the life of the thief. Just sample the life of the crook. There isn't a boy who won't enjoy a working for Captain Hook, the world's most famous crook.
Crook, crickety, crockety, crickety, crook, the croc is after Captain.